Yo, what's up guys? Jerome here. Today we're talking Season of Discovery DPS Tier List. So I want to talk about the very best DPS dealers in Season of Discovery, who's going to perform best on single target, AoE as well, and what kind of utility they bring to the table. We've got to get right to it. You don't want to pick the wrong class. Let's talk methodology. Rankings were compiled by researching optimal rotation and bits for every spec. Then those rotations were compared for both the single target and the AoE scenarios. Utility was also factored in, since classic rating requires a variety of buffs and abilities to maximize success. So far, the bosses in the new BFD raid have been primarily single target. Because of that, the overall rankings do weigh towards single target. So let's get into the best damage dealers in Season of Discovery. First up, we have the Priest class. The new Void Plague rune does give you a free dot comparable to a Shadow Word Pain. Then you get Shadow Word Death as well, which is my favorite single target spell in the game at this level. The big problem slowing down Priest, though, is that when your Mind Blast and your Death are unavailable, you have to fill with 40 damage per second smites. I'm giving their single target damage a 9. Then Mind Seer on paper is one of the strongest AoE abilities available, at least if it works like in Wrath. But the trash packs look pretty small, so this ability would be much worse than a Flame Strike or a Warlock Rain of Fire. Then Shared Pain is actually one of the worst runes in the game, since Shadow Word Pain is the level 18 rank 3 version and only does 7 DPS. I've given their AoE rank a 7. As for utility, Priests do bring Power Word Fortitude for extra stamina. They've also got Resurrection and a variety of very strong heals. Dispel Magic always has strong viability in raids and is BIS in PvP as well. We also can't forget the Priest racials, which are very strong. I mean, something like a Fear Word can be a real difference maker. I'm giving the Priest a utility rank of 6, which puts them at number 9 overall. Moving into the Shaman DPS, let's talk single target. Enhanced Shamans at level 25 can get an incredible 8% hit, and they look very strong on paper. The only thing holding Enhanced back from being top tier is going to be their mana, which is a real problem even with Shamanistic Rage. Ellie Shamans, on the other hand, feel very cursed in Season of Discovery so far. The only chest rune Ellie gets is Overload, which has a chance to give instant lightning bolts. The problem is that Ellie Shamans are only getting lightning bolt rank 4. Then Lava Burst would be insane damage with guaranteed crits, but it requires you to use Flame Shock, which you only get a low rank of. I'm giving Shaman single target an 8. Moving into Shaman AoE, Fire Nova totems are our only source of AoE damage, but it is very strong. I'm giving Shaman AoE rank a 5. As for Shaman utility at 25, it's very solid. You get an offensive purge, you get Cure Poison, you get a variety of totems as well. Strength of Earth is definitely the highlight, with 20 extra strength for nearby party members. And of course, Underwater Breathing, which is great for BFD. I'm giving Shaman utility a 5, and they get an overall rank of 8. Moving into Warrior DPS, let's talk single target. Warriors get much more rage generation than they had at previous level 25. Then they get abilities like Quick Strike, which gives a much needed instant two-hander attack that has all the benefits of Heroic Strike. On top of that, they have Consumed by Rage, which is a perma 25% melee bonus if you manage your rage. I'm giving Warrior single target a 6, but they have a lot of room to improve with things like Flagellation and Raging Blow later in the game. As for Warrior AoE, they only have Cleave and Thunderclap, but that's still enough to put them at number 4. Moving into utility, Warriors do have some pretty underrated utility. They have Disarm, they have Sunder Armor for armor reduction, and Battle Shout rank 2 will buff your entire party with 60 melee attack power. They also have the ability to taunt and start tanking if necessary, especially with rune swaps. Warrior utility gets a 7, and their overall rank gets a 7 as well. Next up, we have Paladin single target DPS. Ret single target is a lot better now with Crusader Strike and the newly improved instant cast Exorcism nuke that works on any target. Rets also get a very strong weapon in Varigan's Fist at level 25, which will really amp up their new attacks like Divine Storm. And Crusader Strike does help to fix your mana issues to keep putting out damage. I'm giving Ret single target DPS a 7 spot. As for their AoE, AoE is really where Rets will shine, with Divine Storm destroying 4 enemies at the same time. Seal of Martyrdom is another AoE option as well, but it's primarily utility for buffing the group. Rets should have the 3rd best AoE in the entire game. As for utility, Paladins have incredible utility with their blessings. They also get the new Horn of Lordaeron buff, which is really strong. And we can't forget their reliable res and their off-healing options as well. Paladin utility gets a 3, and their overall rank gets a 6. Moving into Rogues, Rogues really have incredible single target damage with their new Deadly Brew rune. My preferred build will feature Mutilate Blasting with Envenom as the finisher. The talents are strong at 25 as well. Early sims put single target Rogue at nearly 120 DPS, which puts casters to shame. Rogue single target should be the 2nd best in the game. As for AoE, we can't have everything though, and Rogues feature very poor AoE damage. Rogue AoE is the 8th best. As for utility, rogues do have a lot of utility with things like sap for controlling pulls. They also have exposed armor in case you aren't playing with a warrior, and they also have kick for spellcasters. Rogues get a utility rank of 8 and an overall rank of number 5. Up next, we have hunters and their single target damage. Hunters were already so strong in Classic already. Their new abilities like Explosive Shot are very high damage, and runes like Sniper Training give a huge increase to shot critical strikes. Hunters get a single target rank of number 1. Single target isn't everything though. At 25, you only get multi-shot and rune options like Serpent Spread to spread dots. Data mining has suggested traps might be changed to be usable in combat, but we won't have Explosive Trap until level 34. Hunter AoE gets a 9, which is worst overall. As for utility, Hunter utility is pretty low since all they get is Freezing Trap for kiting enemies. Though to be fair, they also have their pet for tanking an extra mob on multi-target boss fights. Hunter utility gets a 9, but their overall rank is a 4. Next up, we have Mage single target DPS. Arcane gets a new rotation with Arcane Blast to build up your arcane damage buff, then just channeling arcane missiles with maybe an Icy Veins thrown in. Meanwhile, with rank 5 Fireball at 24, Fire Mages manage some of the highest single target caster damage. They get to choose between Burnout for maximum damage or an Enlightenment swap for longer boss fights. As for Frost Mage, single target wise, it's a lot weaker than it seems. You only get rank 4 Frostbolt, and your crit chance is so low you won't even get full value from Ice Shards. Though whenever Fingers of Frost procs, you do get to Ice Lance for 75 a pop. Mage single target gets the 5 ranking. As for AoE, Frost Mage and Fire Mage are the kings at level 25. If we get dual spec, Frost has an option to go Improved Blizzard for kiting huge mob packs. Then Fire with Flame Strike and Living Bomb gives us the most AoE burst in the entire game. If that's not enough, Living Flame gives us yet another AoE option in our toolkit. The mages get the number 1 AoE spot. Utility-wise, you do straight up have a healing setup you can swap to if you're playing Arcane, which is really valuable. You also get Decurse and Arcane Intellect rank 2 for the raid. Amp as well as Dampen Magic are also very useful depending on the situation. Unfortunately, Conjure Food and Water are useless at 25 in raids. That's because vendor food like Sweet Nectar is way better. Mages get a utility ranking of 4 and an overall ranking of 3. Up next, we have Druid single target. My preferred Pharaoh build on paper is very strong at 25 with the new runes. The new Mangle rune gives you a debuff so you can destroy targets with Shred. Savage Roar gives you a new buff to upkeep with a flat 30% damage increase as well. As for Boomkin single target, the new playstyle is all about upkeeping your Sunfire and your Moonfire dots. Then you can pump Star Surge, which is free with the Fury of the Stormrage rune. At level 25, Starfire is a DPS loss, so your playstyle is a lot more mobile than before. Druid single target gets a 3. As for AoE, Ferals have some of the worst AoE in the entire game at level 25. We'll probably just single target cat DPS targets down. We do get Swipe rank 2 at level 24, so we could just Bear Form AoE DPS as another option. Druid AoE gets a 6. Any lack of AoE is made up for immediately with the utility of Druid DPS. Ferals bring Wind Fury now, which makes them required for melee groups. You also have the ability to off-tank on any fight by simply swapping a few runes. Don't forget Cure Poison, your Decurse, your Mark of the Wild armor buff. Then there's Fairy Fire, which gives your raid more damage, Thorns for better tank threat, Pre-Hots for making pulls more consistent. Just forget all of that though, because you have the only battle res in the game at 25, which is the most valuable utility by far. Druids rank number 1 in utility and number 2 overall. Now we have single target Warlock DPS. Affliction dots without any other spells do the same damage as a pre-spamming smite. Meanwhile, Destro is way stronger for single target fights than before, with Demonic Tactics powering up an improved Shadow Bolt. Incinerate's free damage as well, but it's hard to justify over Demonic Pact for raids. Warlock single target gets the number 4 spot. As for AoE, the runes are the secret to the AoE Warlock success. Being able to swap to the Lake of Fire rune makes Rain of Fire one of the 2 best AoE spells in the whole game. Swapping Chaos Bolt and Shadow Bolt Volley for multi-target boss fights should be strong as well. Warlock AoE gets the 2 rank. As for utility, Warlocks suffer from having so much utility that it's almost annoying to maintain. Your Demonic Pact rune is so good for caster groups that you'll have to drop high damage options like Incinerate. Then you can summon players with Ritual of Summoning, but you do have to farm Soul Shards. Creating Hellstones for the raid and Soul Stone for the healer or the tank will be a non-stop job as well. On the less annoying side, you do have higher durability than other classes with Master Channeler and control spells like Fear. And of course, Underwater Breathing is huge for BFD. Warlock utility gets the number 2 spot, and overall Warlock is the number 1 DPS. That being said, these rankings are very much subject to change. Undoubtedly, many of the spells mentioned in this video will be very different on launch day. But I'm still using all this research to plan my alt characters. Hopefully, you'll be inspired to roll some new alts of your own as well. One highly recommended alt to roll would be Warlock. Definitely check out my full Warlock deep dive video next if you want to master the class in time for launch day.